Yasas, Kalimera. I'm Ray Baker. I'm here in the historic center part of Athens. I have the Acropolis in the background here. And, I wanted to tell you something really interesting that happened at this place. About 500 years before Christ, there was a huge plague that came through the city here, and hundreds of people were being killed. And now when we're at a point where we're just now starting to recover from the global pandemic, I think that it's not too hard for us to understand and identify with the feelings of helplessness, despair, confusion that the people back then probably also felt, especially at a time when they didn't know anything about viruses and vaccines or what the causes or possible cures could be for the plague. According to Plato and the ancient Greek historian Diogenes Laertios, so there was a civic leader here in Athens named Nicias, and he wanted to try and figure out what to do about the plague. And so he went and consulted with the Oracle of Delphi. Now, the Oracle of Delphi recommended that Nicias would send an envoy to the island of Crete, to the city of Knossos, to talk to a prophet, priest, poet there whose name was Epimenides. When Epimenides arrived here in Athens, he observed the situation and thought that there must be some god who for some reason was displeased with the Athenians. So he ordered the people to gather some sheep of different colors and different looks, appearances, and to release them on a green hillside like this. Now, the most natural thing would be for the sheep to walk around and to begin to graze and everything, but he instructed some young boys to follow the sheep. And if any of them would lie down and just rest instead of grazing, then these servants were to mark that place, that spot, and to build an altar on that location and sacrifice the sheep there at that spot to this unknown god. The plague lifted, and some of these altars lasted for more than 500 years. They bore the inscription Agnostotheo, to an unknown god, as Pausanias, Philostratus, and the Apostle Luke give testimony. In Athens, there were temples to all kinds of different gods. There were temples to Zeus and Apollo and Aphrodite and Hephaestus and Ares and many, many more. Perhaps the most famous temple was the one you see behind me here, the Parthenon up on the Acropolis Hill. It was built in around the 5th century BC, and inside there was a statue of the goddess Athena that was around 12 meters tall, and its skin was covered with ivory, and her garments were made of gold leaf. I'm here on Areopagus, or Mars Hill. It's a rocky hill just between the Acropolis here behind me and the Athenian Agora just below. The Areopagus also eventually became the name of a very powerful committee of people, a group of oligarchs, if you will, who ruled the whole city of Athens at that time. They were in charge of all kinds of different legal and administrative issues here in the city. The name lives on in modern Greece. Today, the Areopagus is the name of the Greek Supreme Court. At the time when any type of itinerant teacher or philosopher could go around and just start to gather students who would come to them for instruction, when the Apostle Paul came here and started to proclaim Jesus and the resurrection, the members of the Areopagus probably wanted to know what kind of new teaching this is, and so they called him to kind of come and give an account of what he was doing. One member of the Areopagus asked somewhat mockingly, what kinds of little grains of wisdom has this guy picked up? And he used a Greek word here, spermalogos, which means it's the name of a small bird that goes around and picks at different seeds. And so the idea is really that Paul didn't have any original thoughts of his own, and he just went around like a spiritual magpie or intellectual magpie and just picked up whatever was shiny and kind of incorporated that into his teaching. Paul starts off his address by giving the people a compliment. He says, I see that of all things that you are very religious. He was here thinking, of course, about all these altars and temples that he had seen all over the city. But he says that when he was walking around, he noticed this one altar to the unknown God. And it was this God, the unknown God, that Paul now wanted to proclaim to the people. He starts off by quoting words in verse 27 where he says, to seek God and perhaps feel their way towards him and find him. Here Paul is using the same words that Homer used to describe the blind Cyclops, and words that Plato also used much later to describe humanity's search for truth. He then quotes another famous Greek thinker with the words, in him we live and move and have our being. Now, the thing that's really exciting here is that now he's quoting Epimenides, the prophet, philosopher, poet who lived 500 years earlier and whose recommendation had been instrumental in raising these altars to the unknown God here on this very location when the plague was lifted. It seems to be more than just a coincidence that Paul quotes the words from Epimenides at this location and at this time and in this context. To me, it shows at the very least that Paul was very well educated, well read. He knew the literature of his culture and was using that in order to create bridges for the gospel. Today there are no buildings up on the top of Mars Hill itself, but it's still a great place with an amazing view out over the city of Athens. Here on the side of the hill behind me, we have a bronze monument with the original Greek text of Paul's words here from Acts chapter 17. You know, Paul used the media of his day in order to communicate with different types of people. He didn't change the content of the message itself, but he adjusted his ways of communicating to reach different audiences. The message was still the same. It was still the message of Jesus and the resurrection, and the fact that there will come a day when God is going to judge the world, which God has confirmed by raising him from the dead. The result of Paul's message that day was promising. Dionysius, who was a member of the Areopagus, was saved. This street still bears his name. An influential woman named Damaris came to faith, and others expressed interest in learning more about Jesus and the resurrection. Today, we Christians must recognize that evangelism has become missions. In the past, maybe it was good enough that Christians could just tell their testimony to people who shared basically the same types of worldview and assumptions and culture as they themselves did. But now we find that people, even in our own cities and in our neighborhoods, have very different outlooks on life with different sets of values and very different conceptions of truth. And so we need to learn a lesson from what the Apostle Paul did here on Mars Hill, where he took contemporary culture and used that to build bridges to communicate the gospel of Jesus Christ. The gospel does not change, but our way of communicating the gospel to people in our time really does need to change. We need to adjust that so that more and more people will learn to glorify God and to enjoy him forever. From Athens, Greece, I'm Ray Baker. Yassas.